the royal families of Europe, who are ancient bloodlines going back to the ancient world, and the center direction is dictated from this network in Europe. And in each country, their job is to introduce that in their particular sphere of influence. Now, over the last 21 years, I've been to over 55 countries researching this, and therefore I've seen the same thing.
Hospital porters, pride and dignity, stop the New World Order. Welcome to HPANWO TV. Well, I am off to see David Icke live. That's right, I'm heading off, going to stay overnight with some friends in London, and I'm going to go to see David tomorrow. It's nice to be able to stay with those friends. I'll be staying there the night after as well too, so I'm sort of like going to see them. I'm going with Stain, my lovely girlfriend, and I'm going to meet my friends Tiberius Kirk and Mark Westbury, probably others, down in London. Going to get the coach to London. I'm really, really excited. A live David Icke show is one of the highlights of my life, and that is actually true, it really is. And so I'm really, really looking forward to seeing David live. I think I've been to see, certainly, I can't remember, 10 or so David Icke shows live. The first one was in 2002. I went to see my first David Icke live show in August of 2002, and I remember it was actually pouring with rain. And David was, he did his talk about 9/11 and things like that. And it was in, I remember it was very low budget. It was in in the university in Stoke-on-Trent, Staffordshire University. And it was in a hall, just in a hallway, and we sat on garden chairs. It was all very, very primitive, and it was about an 8-hour show. It got longer since then, of course, but I went to see many others. I went to one at the Battersea Arts Centre, and then the first one at the Brixton Academy in 2003. Since then, I think he's done 5 or 6 at the Brixton Academy. I've been to all of them. I've lost count of how many I've been to, how many live David Icke shows I've been to. But as I said, they are one of the highlights of my life, and it's really just great to be able to go to this one. It was going to be a new venue, actually. It was going to be at the Shepherd's Bush Empire, but the Shepherd's Bush Empire, unfortunately, has suffered some structural damage and is closed, so they shifted it to the Brixton Academy, back to where David was before. So we're going to go to the Brixton Academy, and that should be really, really great fun. Oh, come on, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm going to let you know how I get on. Should be pretty good. I'm not going to take my camera with me, but Tiberius Kirk is going to film. He's brought his camera, and he's like a little mobile phone camera, so he can take it into the venue. I can't take this into the venue; they won't let me. So we'll have. I'll do a little bit of a running report, like I did last time. In fact, I'm going to put links in the description box to my previous reports on the David Icke live conferences, so you can sort of like scroll through my previous reports into them, and so I can't wait. Should be good. So, well, let's go. Hospital porters, pride and dignity, stop the New World Order. Welcome to HPANWO TV, and I am here at David Icke Live, June 2016. So this has been I don't know if it's my 10th or 11th live David Icke show. These are one of the highlights of my life, and I'm really curious to find out what David is going to say. I mean, I'm really, I've not read his latest book, so a lot of it's just going to be new information. So, we'll keep you posted, and I'll let you know what's happening and the kind of things that I discover and what David talks about. So, take it easy. See you later. Well, I'll tell you what. Sorry, let me start again. Well, it's now at the end of the first session of David Icke, 25 years later, June 2016. And well, David tends to do things in different orders. He covers the grim stuff, then he covers the happy stuff, and this time he's definitely starting with the grim stuff. He described the control system. It's a lot of information he's already given people. He describes, but he always presents it in a new and exciting way. He explains how, basically from cradle to grave, we are controlled. We're controlled through our internal thought processes, which are engineered by the state. Firstly through education, and he describes exactly how schools are designed to keep us in our left brains, to discourage technical creativity, to keep us and create consumers and workers. And there's evidence that this is actually happening, and that children are becoming less and less laterally thinking, and there's teachers just ticking boxes on forms when they teach a child certain things, so that the kid will go out into the workplace and do their function, they'll be the cog in the machine. He also explained how various think tanks and various theoretical bodies have actually been created that do things like have organised and planned this, sometimes a century or more in advance. For instance, cultural Marxist think tanks like the Frankfurt School and the Fabian Society, and about how it's all been organised beforehand, it's all been written down in books you can read, which predict the world we see today. And there's a guy called Dr. Robert Day, who I've never heard of, but it's the first time I've ever heard of him today, which is unusual for me because I'm such an anorak normally. But David has explained how Dr. Robert Day in the 1960s was actually saying a lot of the things that David is saying today, we observe in the world today. Here, David also covers the way that people are controlled through finance. Now this is where the money system we use is basically, rather than being what it's supposed to be, which is simply a means of economic exchange and activity, is actually used as a tool of manipulation. And David has discussed this many, many times before, but he goes into much greater detail here. We're having things what they call levies, where the banking system will actually remove capital from people's bank accounts if you earn above a certain amount. Well, there's another word for this, it's robbery, it's bank robbery. Whether you do it with a gun or whether you do it with a tick of a pen on a policy sheet, it's the same thing. And in Cyprus, they've stolen over $6 billion from the accounts of some of the wealthier people in Cyprus. Now, how much did the Brixton gang steal? This is the world's biggest bank robbery in history. And he also explains how the environment is used as well. Now, there are lots of real threats to the environment, not least by fracking. But the thing about it is, what do we hear whenever we go to listen to environmentalists? They talk about carbon emissions and climate change. Well, carbon is a product. It's carbon dioxide gas. Carbon is a solid substance. It's black. It's a black solid. It's what you get from burning. Like if you burn your toast, it turns black. It's got carbon on it. So why, for instance, is that used to describe a gas, a harmless natural gas? In fact, it's an essential natural gas. Life on Earth would be impossible without it. It's called carbon dioxide, and it's a wonderful thing. It does not cause climate change. Yet we are told again and again that it is. And what's more, any scientist who disagrees is no longer a scientist. They are a climate change denier and they lose their jobs. And as David explains, if that was the case, if it was necessary, if climate change was real, it wouldn't be necessary to do that. It wouldn't be necessary to threaten people with their livelihoods in order to maintain a narrative. And he talks about political correctness, and this is another part of cultural Marxism where they control your thoughts by making you feel guilty because you might say something completely harmless and it's racist. It could be, say, blackboard or mankind or something like that. These are unacceptable words down the memory hole. They've been struck from the Newspeak Dictionary. And they're perfectly harmless words that don't hurt anyone. So, David covered many other things. I'll tell you what, at this point I do feel sad, I do feel upset, because I think to myself, well, it's pretty bad. The world we're in is pretty bad. But I know that in the next 3 sessions that David's going to talk about, he's going to give us the good news. He's going to give us something that will uplift us and give us hope and encourage us to take action. And maybe then we can awaken from this nightmare. Thank you very much. Okay?
Yep.
Wow, what can I say? We've just experienced part 2 of David Icke 25 years later on this special tour he's on, the Worldwide Wake Up Tour 2016. And I tell you what, I wasn't wrong. We had the grim stuff at the beginning. He talked about all the way that the political and psychological manipulation of the world, but now he went into a completely different subject, which is connected, as you'll find out. But he started to talk about what actually is the universe, how does it work, what's it made of, and now this is a question, of course, which is in the realm of cosmologists and physicists. And amazingly, some of the mainstream cosmologists are now coming around to David Icke's point of view, except Brian Cox, of course. He would never will he? But the idea is that the world, the universe, is actually some kind of projection. It's actually not solid. Matter itself is actually not solid. I mean, matter, of course, is made up of atoms, and atoms are made of subatomic particles. You have like the hadrons of the nucleus, you have electrons orbiting around it, balanced by electrical forces. When you look at these things, though, you'll find out they're actually minute in terms of the scale of the atom. And these particles themselves are more like concentrated little bits of information rather than solid objects. That's why quantum physicists are very, very open to the ideas that David talks about. Because they realise that once you get down to that level, that scale. Things do not work the way they do in the macro world, the universe of Newton's laws. Which leads to think that the actual universe itself is made up of little bits of information. And David Icke uses the analogy of a hologram, which he got from an amazing book, which I really recommend, Michael Talbot's The Holographic Universe. So it means that basically the universe is maybe created because of information that's then generated through our perception, through our consciousness. That's a remarkable thing to say. It means that the difference between the subjective and the objective might not be as clear cut as we thought, and that in a sense everything around us is to a certain point subjective. It's a big subject. There's many different ways that this can be seen. But David uses the example of a hypnotist, because a hypnotist can actually control the way you perceive things very closely, so that the universe itself appears differently. Of course, the hypnotist can hypnotise you to make you think that your daughter's not in the room when she is. She's standing right in front of you. You can't see her, and you can then explain that as well. That's obviously an illusion. That's just essentially a controlled hallucination. But the thing about it is, the hypnotist can then put an object behind the daughter and without showing it to anyone else, and say, "What's that object?" And the person can then tell you what the object is. So for him, it's not just that he can't see his daughters, it's his daughter has vanished from his perception of the universe, allowing him to see objects behind her. That ought to be impossible. And I suppose the way this links into what he talked about in the first part of this amazing lecture is that if you have this information, and it's not a new idea, it goes back thousands of years. In the ancient world, people were theorising about this. But if you are in control of this world and you want to control other people, then controlling their perception of the universe is a vital part of that. Because if you can get them to control their reality, then you can make them have the reality that you want them to have, which is your reality. That is an imprisoned life that we were talking about after the first part. So anyway, David in part 3 is going to reveal who is behind all this, apparently. So, well, hope you'll name names. So, can't wait. I'll let you know how we get on. Right, well, it's the end of the third part of David Icke's lecture of June 2016, latest lecture here at the Brixton Academy. It's 7:30, it's still light out here because it's June. And David actually does not take his own advice in this particular part of the talk, and he does mention the reptilians. You see on this T-shirt, he does take the advice on this T-shirt. Now, the question is, he talked in the previous thing about the segment about the holographic universe, about how reality is a projection. The inevitable question has to be, then where's the projector and who's running it? And in this latest segment, David attempts to answer that by explaining that it's the Archons. The Archons are similar to the Jinn, the demons. The demons, as they're called in Christianity, Jinn in Islam, the Anunnaki in ancient mythology, the Chitauri, and they do appear in reptilian form. And this is where the idea of the reptilians comes from. Now, the Archons are the creatures basically controlling this universe and making it into a matrix, and this is how they administer this particular hologram, which ties into the what David talked in the first part about the postage stamp consensus, as he calls it. I mean, the tiny amount of reality that is allowed, of wisdom and what's moral and immoral, possible and impossible, sane and insane, that is permitted. This tiny little box which everyone has to be in. Now, the planet Saturn seems to be very important to these people, these creatures for some reason. And a lot of mainstream religions, such as Judaism, Christianity, Islam, is all a coded version of Saturn worship. Saturn, of course, is this planet in the outer solar system. David claims that it was not always in the outer solar system. It's surrounded by rings, these strange rings of fragments. Now, what's interesting about Saturn is it's the idea of Lucifer, the demiurge, this lesser god that you find in Gnosticism, is where it's possible Saturn symbolises that. And it's very, very interesting that the Cassini probe, this is the spacecraft that's been orbiting Saturn for the last decade or so, next year is going to crash into the planet. It's actually going to be crashed into the planet, and well, some people claim, because this was attempted in Jupiter in 1986 with the Galileo probe, but it's possible that the impact could actually trigger a fusion chain reaction, which could actually cause Saturn to turn into a star. Now that's known as the Lucifer project. Now if that happens, I don't know. Whether it'll get away with it, I don't know. But the cube, the black cube, is very often a symbol of Saturn, and black cubes can be found all over religion. Of course, the most obvious is the Kaaba building at the heart of the Grand Mosque in Mecca, which is the centre of Islam. All Muslims in the world turn to face the Kaaba, this big black cube in Mecca. Jews also sometimes wear the black cube on a headband, on the front of their foreheads. It's where the third eye is. Again, it's symbolic of this of God, Jehovah, El, whatever you want to call him. It's interesting that the black cube appears in fiction as well. I'm particularly thinking of Star Trek, as Tiberius Kirk has reminded me while we were in there. Star Trek is, there's creatures in Star Trek called the Borg. And the Borg are a species of creature which is they actually share a hive mind. They have the same mind in multiple bodies, and these bodies are half they're half organic and they're half cybernetic. So these are robots stroke organic beings, biological entities, and the Borg reproduce by capturing creatures and turning them into themselves. And their spacecraft, interestingly, are shaped like black cubes. There's even one scene in Star Trek where you see one of these black Borg cubes flying next to the planet Saturn. And of course the nature of the Borg, the cybernetic organisms, which they are, brings us, David, into probably one of the most disturbing things he talked about, which was transhumanism. Transhumanism, well, there's an idiot called Ray Kurzweil who waxes lyrical about how wonderful it would be because we can all become immortal robots and Aryan supermen and things like that with these biological, the technology will allow us to live forever and have supercharged minds with memories that never fail and things like that. And he says how wonderful it would be. The fact of the matter is, though, what he doesn't say, as some people like Max Egan have pointed out, is that what our image of a perfect life could be would be very different from the image of what the political classes want us to be. We're more likely to end up as the Epsilons from Aldous Huxley's Brave New World than any kind of a supercharged robot. So I think, and David thinks, and I agree with him, that transhumanism is simply a trick to get all people into this agenda where we lose our entire humanity and we become merely a hive mind of machines. This includes things like chemtrails, things like smart dust. Now, smart dust is tiny nanobots that can actually track us and can do all kinds of things. And I do recommend the latest James Bond film, Spectre, because these elements come into it, including total surveillance. In the latest James Bond film, even if you're not normally a fan of James Bond, please do watch this film because it's about the creation of a global surveillance grid. And James Bond himself is injected with nanobots, these smart dust, so that he can be tracked. So this is really where we're headed at the moment. This is the level that things have descended to, and I just hope that we can do something about it. Now I know that David is an optimist, and I know in the last part of David's talk he's going to say something uplifting, which will leave us in feeling happy and uplifted and optimistic when we leave the Brixton Academy this evening. So I'm looking forward to hearing that from David in the last part of his talk. Well, David Icke has finished his lecture, and the last part was really, really good. It's good news and bad news. The bad news was that the real reason that the Archons have taken over our universe and we're in the situation we're in is because of us. It's because we let them in. It's because we gave away our sovereignty. We didn't understand who we were, and we allowed them to let us live little lives. But that's also the good news, because the good news is, as David explains, we can repair it ourselves. We let them in ourselves. We can kick them out ourselves, and we do it by not complying. It's very simple. It doesn't involve violent revolution. It just involves calmly and in a dignified manner, and all together as one, stepping away from archontic control and And it was a spiritual message at the end of the day. It's about the choice between fear and love. And he quoted Bill Hicks a lot. He quoted Martin Luther King and Gandhi a lot, and explained it. And really, the atmosphere, as it always is in the last part of David's shows, was absolutely electric. He really raised the roof. People was transfixed, and it was really quite ecstatic at the end. And I've had a wonderful time. I think this is like maybe the 10th or 11th time I've seen David live. I've certainly seen him about 4 or 5 times in Brixton, and I loved it. I was there with my friends, with Stain and with Tiberius Kirk and with Mark and all the others, and it was getting together with the other people as well. I saw Danny Oliverite, I saw Nick Colostrum, and saying hello to them was very nice as well. So I'm absolutely exhausted. It's almost midnight, and God, I feel like it's funny, I've been sitting on my arse all day. I feel like I've walked for 10 miles, so I'm no doubt going to sleep very well tonight. So thanks for watching HPANWO TV. Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity, stop the New World Order.
Well, I'm home. It's my ticket. David Icke Live. David Icke Books presents David Icke 25 years later. And there it is there. Oh, I had a great seat, as you can see in the video. You just seen in the video, you might have just seen. It was on the left hand side of the auditorium in the stalls. Me, Stain and Tiberius Kirk. Tiberius Kirk was originally in another part of the venue, but he managed to swap seats, so it was really good. We managed to sit together. Oh, it was fantastic. Now this is actually part of David's world tour. The 25 years later thing refers to the fact that the venue, the event, it was on June the 18th, of course, of 2016. Well, 25 years before that was the night that David Icke appeared on Wogan and did his famous Son of God speech, and the whole country laughed at him. They're not laughing now, I can tell you. No way. After everything he predicted has come true. Now, if you want to go and see David, I mean, David is actually appearing at other events. This is actually the David Icke Worldwide Wake Up Tour 2016 and 17. So it's a major international tour he's doing, which is remarkable. I mean, he's getting older. You know, he's just getting older every day. He's now 64. But he's still going strong. I think he'll always do this his whole life. I think he really will, until the world is free and we've reached the end of the New World Order. I think the fact that it's the EU referendum next week is I think it's very, very significant. I'll be making some special films about that. But if you want to go and see David live, he's appearing. He's actually appearing on the 9th of July. If you're Australian and you live in Australia, at Perth, at the Perth Racecourse. And then on the 16th of July, he's in Sydney Town Hall in the city of Sydney, New South Wales. And then he's going to Brisbane on the 23rd of July at the Logan Metro Arena. And then Melbourne on the 30th of July at the Melbourne Conventional Centre. And Melbourne Conventional, I think that's what it's called. So there's 4 venues in Australia you can go to. So wherever you live in Australia, unless if you live in Alice Springs like Footy McGrew does, he's a member of my forum, you'll be able to go to that. And then he's going across to New Zealand and appearing at Auckland at the Logan Campbell Arena on the 6th of August. And then he's going over to the good old US of A to appear at New York City Grand Prospect Hall 10th of September. And then Los Angeles which is Orange County, the Irvine Marriott Hotel 17th of September. That's actually in Orange County, California. I know that Gareth Davis of the Mindset Podcast is going to get along and see that. And he's going to San Francisco, the Craneway Pavilion, on the 24th of September. And then he's coming back to Europe and he's going to Prague in the Czech Republic at the Lucerna on the 8th of October. Then going to Italy, I think it's Italy anyway, Rimini I think is in Italy, isn't it? The Rimini Theatre, 22nd of October. And then to Romania and the Bucharest Palace Theatre, 5th of November, and then all the way up to sunny and cold Estonia, at a place at the capital Tallinn, and the Tori Raba is called the venue, the 12th of November, and then across to Amsterdam to smell the tulips in the Netherlands at the Rai Theatre on the 19th of November. But then he's not over, because he's coming back to England on the 14th of January, where he's appearing at the Manchester O2 Apollo, and then he's going to finish his tour on the 1st of January at the Helix Theatre in Dublin, Ireland. So lots and lots of different places you can go to. Now, this is not an advertisement for David. I'm just saying, I'm just bringing this out because I happen to believe in what David does and I like what he does. Now, a little bet with you and with myself. Somebody, I can absolutely guarantee that by the time you've watched this far in the film, somebody will have posted a comment in the comments box saying something like, Ben, David Icke is controlled opposition and you're a sheeple and a shill if you believe in him. I'm not going to say exactly why I think that. I'm just going to say that you're a sheeple and a shill because you don't agree with me. I'm not going to explain why, I'm just going to say it. I can bet you anyone, something is going to say that. Somebody there is going to say that. One of you is going to leave a comment like that. And all I can do is refer you to my film, Is It Cool to Be Anti-Icke? In fact, I'm even going to put a link in the description box because I'm so certain that one of you idiots is going to do that, aren't you? But for everyone else, I hope you enjoyed this film and I hope you do get to go and see David somewhere near where you are. Thank you for watching. Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity, Stop the New World Order.
Government that would dictate to every country. They want a world central bank that would dictate all global finance. The Roman Church has just suggested it, and so is this House of Rothschild billionaire gopher called George Soros. He's suggested the same thing, and when he says it, it's the Rothschilds speaking. They want a world currency which would not be cash, it would be a single electronic currency. This is about control. And the other thing they want, and this is very, very relevant to current events, is they want a world army. And what we've seen with Libya and these other countries that have been invaded is exactly the official situation they want to go to, where the world army